Good evening, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. Episode 78, people. Believe it or not, we're 78 episodes in, and we're joined by a very special guest, a repeat guest, three times now, Ben Sedaghatfar, a good friend of mine. He hails right now. I guess he's in Los Angeles. He's based in Los Angeles. He has a company called Papana. He's a business owner. You guys can go back to episodes 3 and 44 to listen to our previous two interviews with Ben Sedaghatfar. He got a degree in business and finance at the University of Indiana at Bloomington. And we're going to talk about October the 7th, the Hamas attack some. We're going to talk about it from a different perspective, maybe. And we're going to also talk some about Mossad and maybe some of Epstein's ties to Mossad, which I think the media really hasn't touched on. So we got a lot of interesting topics to touch on today. And we had a conversation before we got on, and I wish I would have recorded some of that, but we're going to recapture that very soon. I trust you, audience. But I just want to say welcome back to the show, Ben, and thanks for coming back to talk to me.
No, it's exciting to be back. I mean, every time we get on one of your podcasts, there's like new things happening.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of good to be able to go talk about these things, because for the most part, me being obviously Jewish, and with everything that happened in that what recently just happened, it's hard to talk about this from different point of views with Jewish people in my own community, because everybody's obviously, rightly so, they have their mind made up. And, if you, have something different to say, if we say, hey, maybe we gotta, maybe things are not as they seem. You gotta kind of not be so emotional and start thinking, because once we're all emotional, I don't care whether it's if you're Jewish or you're Muslim or not Muslim supporting Palestine, or you're non-Jewish supporting Israel, with everything that we're being shown, it just seems like they're trying to get the best of us, get our emotional, so that we don't use logic, we don't use our head, and we're just very emotional about it. So it'll be very difficult to make sense out of things, to make you fearful, and sort of be lost, not figure out what is, kind of confuse you in a way. Because when you're emotional and you're bombarded with all these images, for Jewish people is 1,400 people who got murdered, and all of a sudden that's not a big deal, because Palestine's been under occupation for 75 years, and what's more important are all the people getting killed on the other side, right? So we're at a point right now that we're not willing to admit what happened on October 7th. It's not, what happened then was okay, and all these children and kids, and the baby that was put in an oven and burned, and the kid who was ripped out of his mother's belly is okay. It was not a big deal. That's not is not important. But 100 children in Gaza getting blown up is somehow is different. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I was telling some people, even when I'll be honest with you, my first reaction when I heard about this wasn't none of, I've had weeks to think about it now, so I have a different view. But at the time, I was equating this to the BLM summer based on just the hysteria behind, George Floyd was killed, and then you've had killings going on for years, and then it's like, why is this one so highlighted and emphasized? And then you have the election coming up, and then there seemed to be a motive to get Trump out of office. So what was the real motive? Was it police brutality, or was it to get Trump out of office? Then you had COVID, and yes, so much at once, and then you got people just going back and forth. They're already on the edge, and
Right.
so all you need is a catalyst to get people just out of their seats and out of their houses. In that case, I mean,
Right.
no people who had never done protesting before were in the streets. I mean, your grandmother, your great grandmother, your
Right.
granddad, all these people were in the streets,
Right.
and it seems like now we have an election year and we have an equally oppositional topic in Israel Palestine that there's already a history. It's not like this history hasn't started from anything, and so you already have people coming in with their views and their stances, and so the news is like, so why all of a sudden is this like Ukraine, Russia? Let's put it on the shelf. So this now is the most important geopolitical affair in the world, and they're not even talking about the election right now. But that was kind of like my first reaction. I'm asking why, even though I have the views that I have, and my views are pretty documented, but I'm asking this question like, why now? Why all of a sudden is this like the big moment?
Yeah. And
To
why all the protests right now? And the other question is why the thing is, with respect to the media coverage, okay, and I don't have TV, I don't watch TV, I don't watch the news, but from what I see on, Google News or little clips here and there, why is it that the US media that's traditionally been very pro-Israel
oh
and
yeah,
taking the side of Israelis somehow is doing the opposite, is covering more of the other side.
mm-hmm.
This is not for me being, there because I'm Jewish, I should be taking my side. It's just that why
The
the
shift.
sudden shift? So these are all questions. So I mean, right now I have a lot of more questions than answers, and I'm always just like kind of questions and then update my view, what I think. Is it correct? And sometimes it takes time for you to figure out as different things tend to happen. But yeah, this whole new uh, Palestinian movement or pro-Palestinian movement is very different than before, because before it was limited to, rightly so, to Muslim people.
Or Al
That,
Jazeera.
no, but what I'm saying is, in terms of protests, it would be okay. There will be a suicide bombing in Israel, for example. The Jewish people go out on a weekend, they protest in front of the federal building, or 2 days. You get a little bit of, excitement or drama going on. The Palestinian people or the pro-Palestinian supporters, who are majority just Muslim people, have the other side, and it's there for a week and it's gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get into this 100,000 person marches around the globe,
Mm-hmm.
people trying to tear down the White House, right? And people who've never been to a pro-Palestinian march, all of a sudden they're like Middle Eastern expert on the issue, right? And these seem to be the same people who are in the BLM marches and the COVID marches, or vaccine marches and all these, teacher union type of stuff. And I don't know if you saw this on Fox News. They were interviewing this woman who's supposedly a diehard pro-Palestinian thing. I'm not saying this to make fun of the Palestinian side. I want to, like I said, before we got on this, I said I want to reframe everything to kind of give people a different perspective. I want to talk about conspiracies, and if those conspiracies are, let's say, true from the other side, then why are they still behaving a certain way? So we're gonna get to that. But they're interviewing this woman, you know, I don't know. She's not white, you know. She's like she's not African. I mean, she's like kind of brown, darker skin.
Not a black person, though?
Hispanic, black. She could have been black.
Okay.
And they're interviewing her. She's got her keffiyeh on, the Palestinian flag, and she's talking about, you know, I'm gonna march for Palestine. I'm gonna march for this cause till then I die, and you know, we're gonna be. We need justice. And then and then she's like, yeah, I'm here to march for Palestine. And she's like, where? She's like, I'm here to march for Palestine, and I'm gonna be here till the day I die to get these people's right for Palestine. The fact that she didn't even know it's called Palestine, and she's calling it Palestine as if it's like Pakistan or Afghanistan, kind of shows me she has no clue. She's just there because it's the new Ukraine, and it's like the new thing that she needs to be marching with. And I see that in a lot of different places, because and then you have the BLM in Chicago posting the pro-Palestinian, you know, in support of the Gaza, but they have a picture of these gliders, basically representing these Hamas people coming on a glider, murdering 1,400 people. All right. So it wasn't like we stand with the people of Gaza. It's that we stand with Hamas. All right. And also the part where if these people are all for equity and inclusion and diversity, how is a murder of 1,400 people in the way it happened? You know, I have my questions of how did Israel allow this to happen? Like, what was the failure there? That was like my first question. Like, you cannot go through that fucking border.
I know.
Like, if an ant moves 100 feet below ground, they're going to detect those vibrations. Right? But somehow they missed all of this. I mean,
it doesn't make any sense at all.
Whole separate conversation.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't even make sense.
But at the same time, not acknowledging, people say, oh, we're not, you know, you cannot say, oh, we're for human rights without acknowledging what happened to those 1,400 people, including babies, children, Israeli Arabs, foreigners. You know, it wasn't just Jews that they killed, right? That somehow those are just normal the way it happened, right? It was like literally ISIS coming to your hometown, shooting everybody up, and I'm not kidding you when I say they had put a baby inside a fucking oven. And there's like a burned baby that they took out of the oven. There was a baby who was a pregnant mother who just had, like, they had ripped her stomach. Baby was sticking out. Like, this is like, we're talking about horrific. It wasn't a suicide bombing. You know, at least a suicide bombing would say, one guy went in, he blew himself out, a bunch of people died. This was, they went door to door, they killed without regard people in cold blood, and they took a bunch of hostages. And it's still surprising to me that with all the coverage, there is no talk of releasing hostages. That's another odd thing for me, because you think right away people want to release hostages. Everybody's saying ceasefire now, but and we're saying, well, what about the hostages, right? Well, how can you have a ceasefire or allow humanitarian aid when you're holding 200 hostages?
I'm going to tell you something. But see, that all goes into none of it adding up. It does. Right. And before we got on, I did a lot of research. I tried to find not just press conferences on the Israeli Defense Forces. You can find tons of interviews with IDF people, with Netanyahu, with Herzog, and all the people in the Knesset. But if you try to find like interviews from Hamas people, you can't even hardly find them. And it's like it's almost you have to speculate, like, okay, what is going on? And like you said, the hostages, like you hardly hear anything about the hostages. It's almost like it's invisible. Like Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. Where's Hamas at? Where's the hostages? It's like is you have things that are visible, and then you have some things that are not. They're part of the story, but you don't even really hear them touched on.
Yeah. You know, they're separating Gaza from Hamas. They don't want to talk about Hamas and what they did, right? They just want to talk about Gaza.
But at the same token, though, I think some of that has to do, if I'm to be fair, the reaction to what Hamas did was so abrupt too. I mean, how long was it before they actually before they started dropping the bombs, like Israel? What was it like? Like a couple of days later?
No.
How long was it after that? Like a week?
So no, what happened was Israel went and started bombing based on their intelligence where these Hamas people were. It wasn't they said we're gonna invade Gaza.
Yeah.
But then before that, while they're talking about this, they went and started bombing areas where they had intelligence of whether there was weapons, tunnels, and things like that. And then they gave a 3-week warning. They said we're gonna be invading Gaza. We're gonna be invading Gaza. That's been clear from the beginning since that happened. And they allowed, like, it was for like 20 days to allow people to move out of Gaza City and towards the south of Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
So that not as many civilians were gonna get killed. Israel didn't go in right away. Israel was at the border.
They didn't, but does that make it any better? Like that's just that would be like somebody coming in my neighborhood, like, okay, you got 3 weeks to leave. I mean, so where are they supposed to go? Where are they supposed to go? And even if they go,
okay. So
I mean, they don't have any homes. I mean, it's like where are they going to go? It's like they're going to leave their home and just go where?
Okay.
It's not that big of an area to begin with.
Well, they were telling them to move out of the city, go south towards Egypt. Why doesn't? Okay, I'm gonna play the other side, and then we're gonna come back and we'll kind of bring it all together. So you just got attacked. Our neighborhood. Let's say we're in a gang, and you guys just came to our neighborhood and shot up 1,400 people randomly. You know, you shot up a music festival. Of most of the people that were actually participant in that music festival were left-wing Israeli kids who don't want war, they want peace with Palestinians, who are actually marching.
Don't when you're in a gang, you're not like distinguishing.
No. I'm just saying, in the Israeli thing, this is what happened in the neighborhood. And do you want my reaction to be, oh, let us wait to figure this out? No, you're gonna go and start shooting up the place. You don't wait for terrorists to plan more stuff. You go in and you have to react, and you have to react forcefully, right?
Yeah, but Netanyahu, to me, the way he presented it, is almost like he basically said everyone is Hamas. Like that's the way I interpreted it. It's like
I'm not this. I
know, sure, but it's like. But I think that's why the reaction was the way it was, is because Netanyahu is already a very polarizing figure, like even in Israel.
But if you're a president of a country, you have to be forceful. If you show weakness, then what kind of leader are you?
I understand that, but
listen, this is not like me taking his side. Any leader would be like, yeah, we're gonna go blast them out, because when 1,400 people people died in cold blood. It wasn't a suicide bombing, right?
Right.
It wasn't
I know what you're saying.
It was kind of like an invasion, right? Of coming to your neighborhood and just mowing people down. It was you know, you hear these things like happening you know, in countries in like Africa. All right.
Mhm.
You go in and you people just go in, whether it's like ethnically
Just a
cleansing
massacre. Yeah.
people. Yeah, it was a massacre, and nobody wants to say it was a massacre from the other side. Somehow they're trying to make it uh, less than it actually was. That it was just a normal response to an occupation, which it was. It was not. What
Mhm.
happened was not a normal. Nothing about this thing has been normal. From
I,
them coming
mhm.
to Israel and Israel being asleep at the wheel and letting it happen, right? Getting through that
Mhm.
security is one question, and the magnitude, the way it was carried out,
Mhm.
the 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 the, the brutality of it is
Mhm.
is is just, you know, it's insane. And then and then like just everything else sense, trying to change the narrative
Well,
of
but see,
how it was okay and the occupation is, to me, it's been off. That, yeah, I think we kind of agree on that part with the protest and like everything else. And as far as the response, I think it would have been if anything, I think Israel handled it better than other places. You think if it was America, they wouldn't just go bomb the hell out of the place and leave?
of course, but I think the people that you're talking about, I don't necessarily, I wouldn't be probably a part of that, even though I share the overall, like I view the occupation, like I acknowledge that there's an
Listen,
occupation. But
there
what
were
I'm saying is
people.
this. No, no, what I'm
Yeah.
saying is this is that I think a lot of those people are reacting to, I don't even know exactly what they're reacting to. I think is that there's an
When
anti-war
you say,
sentiment.
sorry, when you say those people, who are those people? Are we talking about Arabs,
No,
American Arabs who are, you know, who've known about the conflict since they were kids and they've
no,
seen
I'm
all
not talking about
the
those
images,
people.
or the BLM people that are out in the street marching?
I'm talking about people that would be like the BLM people who wouldn't have been part of the 2014 BLM marches, but they waited until the 2020, you know, at an opportune time when everyone else was rallying around it. And so everyone else jumps on board. People who wouldn't even be a part of it otherwise, they're a part of it. They want to be a part of something, whether it's, you know, they think it's for a good reason or not. What I'm saying is that I think that they're reacting to, like, there's an anti-war sentiment already because there's the angst of Ukraine, Russia. There's the angst of our money going away just for no reason. Like, we don't need to be bombing places. We don't need to be involved at all. Like, this is not our country. Like, the
But
United
who's,
States is
but
not Israel.
I
Even though
think,
we have an alliance with Israel, the United States and Israel are not the same. Like, I think a lot of people are coming from that angle. And I think that there's also, I forgot what I was about to say, is something just not adding up. I think you also have a
nothing
third of
is
the
adding
people.
up.
No,
Yeah.
a third of the people are also very skeptical anyway because
Right.
they don't understand how that even happened.
Right.
And I'm probably caught in between the skeptics. Like that's where I'm at right now. Like I just don't understand how this wasn't collaborated ahead of time because they said that this is Israel's 9/11. When they said that, that was automatically that sent off like alarms. They're already comparing it to 9/11. They're already comparing it to an event that was already controversial in itself because Bush had almost a reason to go invade another country anyway because his
Well, I
dad
mean,
had,
I mean, in a way, the number of people that were killed, it was like a 9/11 for Israel.
it was a,
You
yeah, but I'm
know.
talking about not only that, but also the 9/11, just like the building 7 and just all the stuff that didn't add up with 9/11.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And I
I
mean,
listen.
mhm.
I was the first person to say, like, none of this makes sense. How would Israel, the fact that these people were able to commit such horror under IDF's watch coming over the border. Just the whole thing, right? The first one is, how the fuck did these people get in? Right? That's.
I mean, it's so close too, right? It was like what, 5 kilometers from Gaza?
No, it's a border. It's literally. It's not about how close it is. How did these people get through the security?
Right. Exactly. How did they even get through?
Right. How do they just bring a bulldozer and throw the fence out without anybody being there? Or these are, you hear, obviously, when you listen to the Israeli media or people in Israel that have their explanation, there's a couple of different explanations.
Mm-hmm.
They make sense, but yet they don't make sense. Right? Part of it, they're saying this was planned for 2.5 years.
Oh, it
right?
was?
That's what Hamas said. We've been basically planning this for 2.5 years, pretending as if they've sort of scaled back their activities just to kind of put Israel on at ease.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And Israel had just actually granted more work permits for those Gazans to come over the border to work as a result of that. That there hadn't been any conflicts, things have been relatively calm. So that was happening. There was another theory how Hamas is using more precision military stuff because they bombed a bunch of like cell towers and cameras. Those could have came from Afghanistan when we left, right? I mean, if you go back, this whole conflict was all written when we left Afghanistan, when all these weapons that we left there went straight to Iran and to the Taliban and God knows who in that area, right? And you knew they were gonna show up somewhere, like something was gonna happen somewhere.
Oh no, hey, I had one question. When you were talking about the paragliders and the Hamas paragliders and stuff, where was the resistance during that situation? Like, was the IDF on the scene when they came down?
No, because they went into the music festival.
Like without any resistance at all. They pretty much went in and there was like no one there.
I mean, they flew over. It's not enough time for you to deploy.
Right.
Let's say the Air Force, because you got to have the intelligence. Deploy Air Force. There wasn't anybody, because if they get close to the border and you fly out, you know exactly where you're going. It takes 10 minutes.
So you're saying they were already on the side of they're already on that side.
Yeah, they flew over the side, over the border.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Into the festival. The paragliders went into the festival.
Okay.
Okay, they didn't go into the city. It was 2 different areas.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So these guys flew with the paragliders into the music festival, while at the same time there were other people going straight into the town, the kibbutz, and like murdering people.
And there was like no. So normally, would there be like security at an event like that? We're talking about lots of people in one area, right?
No, it's on the Israeli side. So they have normal security, because
not
usually
like IDF people.
Because usually that Shabak or Shin Bet would have intelligence if there was a threat that they had known of, right? They would have they know. When I lived in Israel, I had a friend. I had my cousin, like a distant cousin, is my age. He had gone to the army and he was up there. Did you ever watch Fatah?
No.
the show Fatah. You should watch it.
Okay.
It's basically these guys, Israeli guys, soldiers. Like anytime they want to go kidnap somebody in an Israeli town, in a Arab guy, let's say they have a terrorist that want to go snatch the guy. These are the guys that go in. They'll get dressed up as Arabs. They go in and they kidnap the guy and come out. He was one of them. And so they knew he was, he was close to intelligence. And he used to tell me, he said, when the second Intifada was happening, years ago, there was a bunch of suicide bombings. He told me, he's like, 95% of the times, we knew there was going to be a suicide bombing. We had intelligence that today, around this time, there was going to be a suicide bombing. They just didn't know where or who. The intelligence they had is from their sources and intelligence that there was going to be a suicide bombing and that it's going to be around an area. They just didn't know who was going to carry it out. So he's like, yeah, they used to send us close to the area. We'll be searching for, somebody who could be a potential threat, or we'll just wait for the bomb to go off. And then we'll just go to the scene and try to help out as much as possible. So with regards to whether the festival had anything or not, I don't know. That you've never been to Israel. Israel is a very safe place. They're not expecting somebody to come with a paraglider and shoot them, or it's like out in the middle of a desert, and there was a fence. It wasn't like next to the border. It was away from the border, but it wasn't in a way of whether they had security. I don't think security would have been able to do anything.
Okay, so see, this got me wanting to I think it's appropriate to bring in some of these events that have happened on October the 7th. Like, I have a whole list of events that I was researching that's happened on October the 7th, which is crazy. And I was talking to S.L. Campton yesterday. He's a geopolitical analyst, and he was talking about his theory, which is let it happen on purpose. Like, that's what he thinks. He thinks that it was allowed to happen, because, just based on that, there's just no way that a country with that much intelligence it just doesn't make sense. It really
doesn't make sense. I'll be the first one. It does not make any sense, which, kind of, then you say it doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it make sense? Then you start asking other questions, like, why could that? I mean, one is like, did Israel know and they let it happen anyway? Right? But as me questioning that, it kind of, I have to sort of question everything I hold near, dear to my heart about, Israel and, as a Jewish state. Like, would Israel do that? Would Israel do that to their own people? Right?
Well,
that's one question.
We know the governments are corrupt everywhere. So to me, it's very possible to.
Right. So but again, that's just one theory. That's one question, right? Then you can take that question and say, okay, could Israel have let it happen? It's a possibility, right? But why? Right? Someone could argue, well, Netanyahu, there was a lot of protests against Netanyahu. There was a lot of the stuff that he was been charged with corruption. He's trying to take over the Supreme Court, and he needs a
uniting cry.
That makes sense, but I don't think Israel would need such horrific accidents
for him to rally people to kind of get attention. Because again, the extent, the whole thing, 1,400 people, right? You could say a suicide bombing. You could, if there was a suicide bombing, or if it was something not to at the scale, right? Of what happened. I don't think Israel, my opinion, I don't think Israel would do such a thing. Brings that scale of atrocity to its own people in order to take away from, Netanyahu. I just don't think Netanyahu has the power or the people involved to coordinate such a thing. Right?
Well, what do you? I think, but him being on TV so often is.
Hold on, we're gonna get there. So that's one theory. Could Israel have done it? When I look at the scale of it, right? It doesn't seem like Israel would have done it. It's possible that you could also say it's possible that Israel knew. So another, like, this would be a conspiracy. Israel knew there was going to be an attack, right? And politically, they're like, okay, maybe this will happen. Somebody will get injured, or some people will get killed. So we're gonna let it happen. We'll unify the country, right? But then they didn't realize how big it would be, right? So they just miscalculated the threat. That, to me, doesn't make sense either, unless somebody else was planning it. They knew about it, but then another party was involved, right? That, I guess, or you could say there were Israel and another party were conspiring with each other on something, but then the other party betrayed Israel and it just turned it something to take it because they had their own problems that they need to solve. Makes sense? So,
okay, I got one thing. Since we're talking about this, I think we're at a point in society now where just these crazy scenarios are not impossible, because they just, who knows what the motives are. Who's to say that Hamas and some of the people in the Israeli forces, they haven't made a deal out that we don't know about? I don't know. I guess the thing that confuses me about the 3-week warning is that presupposes that Hamas is going to still be in Gaza in 3 weeks. Who's to say that the people that they're targeting aren't even in Gaza? I mean, that's the thing that kind of concerns me, because where did these people go after they killed all these people, the 1,400 people? Where did they go afterwards? I mean, are they still in Gaza, or did they go to Qatar, or did they go to Egypt, or are the people who are actually responsible, the leadership, are they actually in Gaza physically? That I guess.
So the leader, again, this is a great question, and I was gonna get to that part of it, but since you got into it, the people who are fighting, the soldiers, okay, they don't know any of this, right? Yes, the leaders of Hamas or the leaders of Gaza, supposedly the government, they don't live in Gaza. They live in Qatar in luxury hotels and villas, and they're just having a time of their life, and they're billionaires. They're making money like no other. The people who stormed Israel, the foot soldiers, those guys have been, I could call them brainwashed into thinking that they're doing a great cause, right? And to them, they're probably believe that, right? Like the guy who's willing to go kill himself to be a martyr in the way of God. I really believe that guy who did it, he believes that's a good thing to do, right? The person who told him that it's a good thing to do. But the guy who told him that doesn't give a shit about him or
Yeah,
Allah or any of this. This guy's on the other side of the world, away from the destruction. He might have a house there that's gonna get blown up. Who gives a shit, because he's got billions of dollars and he's got private planes going place to place. It was interesting.
Kids are educated in the West. I mean, and the kids, a lot of times, their families are like educated in the West. I mean, they're not. You look at Osama's family. I mean,
right. So I mean, you said, well, you brought up a great point, which people who are supporting Gaza or people who support Hamas, right, need to really think hard. If this, like you said, because there is a conspiracy that Israel created Hamas, right? There among the Muslim people, someone said, "Oh, Israel created Hamas so they could take control." Blah blah blah.
Divide the area.
If that's the case, wouldn't every Muslim and person living in Gaza want Israel to go in and get rid of all these people?
I don't think so, because I mean,
why do you support? If you say Israel created Hamas, then why do you support Hamas?
I guess, but see, there's a history.
You understand what I'm saying?
Hamas was created in the 80s. Like, that was in the 80s. And see, that's very different from 06 when they were like democratically elected into the positions. I mean, when they had to take over with the PLO, I mean, they were elected democratically. Actually, Jimmy Carter was one of the people there watching over it, like to be like a witness or an observer. I mean,
no, PLO is not Hamas.
I know PLO is the other side. I know that they're part of Fatah.
Right.
But what I'm saying is Hamas democratically won those elections in 06.
I mean, we could say Joe Biden democratically won the 2020 election.
Oh, I mean, I know what you're saying.
No different. You could say democratically all along, but nobody knows. I mean, we're talking about the media telling you what to think, right? And creating history. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, I mean, to your point of, did Hamas and Israel make a deal, for something? Then if it is, what's that thing? And if that's the case, what does that say about Hamas and all these and the Arabs who support Hamas and what Hamas did, right? Or what Hamas is doing in their name or in the name of Islam, right? They're in their word, Hamas is working with the Zionists. That's what this is, right? The government of the people who claim to be occupied are working with the occupiers. Your masters are working against you to enrich themselves. Based on that logic. Do you understand what I'm saying? So why would any supporter of Gaza support the current Palestinian government in Gaza? Why wouldn't they all just march down and beat the living shit out of every single one of them?
Are you talking about the people that are living there now over there, or are you talking about people outside of the area?
All of them.
Well, see, I don't know their reality. See,
they're all talking about an occupation, and they have their martyrs, they have their soldiers, people who are defending the Gazan people against the occupation, right? Hamas are the freedom fighters. We just said their bosses are conspiring, in the Muslim term, with the occupying Zionists, right? To enrich themselves. So I would be more furious if I found out the people who are telling me go martyr yourself, right?
and stay there. It's good to go kill yourself or fight for the cause, is literally conspiring with the occupation to enrich themselves than Israel itself. Wouldn't you?
Mm.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. I don't know if are you drawing this as a hypothetical?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you brought up, was there something between Hamas and Israel, right? Did they make some kind of deal, right?
Yeah, but
as
see,
a
I'm doing it as
theory,
I'm doing it as a tier. I'm doing it as I'm presupposing that
as a possibility.
that the populations of Israel and the populations of the Palestinian territories, including the West Bank, I'm assuming that those people are clueless. They don't know what's going on. That this is all people who are like high security clearance people and people in like leadership positions, whether it's Hamas or if it's the Israeli government, not the people themselves, but the governments of these two areas. That's what I'm saying, not the people.
Right. So so then and that's why I said I wanted to just keep reframing all these things so that the Jewish people who are so distraught, they look at a different lens. Maybe they start questioning. Sure. And all the pro-Palestinian, pro-Gaza, the people in the Muslim world, I mean, you gotta, the leftists who are marching for Palestine, right? I don't really give two shits about them because they're just been, they don't even know what they're talking about, right? But there is a large number of Muslim people who do support the Palestinian cause, rightly so, because of all things that they've seen. You know, all they see is a picture of hospitals getting blown up and babies getting pulled from under the rubble and, you know, dying, people getting blown up, right? I mean, as a person, you would feel that too. And then at the same time, I could show a same picture from the other end of burnt bodies and buses blown up.
Oh,
you know,
hey, but to be fair, not to cut you off, but what you're saying is total. It was inevitable because honestly, me and you both knew that once October 7th happened, we knew that there was going to be a retaliation. We already knew it. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can't expect it. If I was an heir, I think that somehow the narrative changed because sometimes us as people, like you're so married or tied to an idea that you'll find anything to justify it. I think the first couple of days of what happened in Israel, even the Muslim people, I don't care if you were pro-Palestine or not, they looked at that and they're like, oh my God, this is horrible, right?
I agree.
It's what happened is horrible. It shouldn't have happened, right? And obviously, you know what's going to come next, right? And then once the retaliation happened, all of a sudden, it's too much. It's not proportional. As if somehow Israel's got to go and only kill, 1,400 people and then come out and call it even and call it a day, right? It's just how the narrative. This could have been this atrocity could have been a great unifying thing against terrorism and people coming together.
I totally agree.
But somehow it divided and separated us.
I believe it's honestly, Benny, I believe it's as simple as war fatigue. All we've known our whole life is war, decades of war. That's all we've ever known. I just think people are tired of it. I really do. I think people are tired of this collaboration with the military-industrial complex. They just don't want to see any more of this stuff going on, this empire expansion. I mean, it is. I know a lot of this stuff is out of control, but I think a lot of if this hasn't happened over and over, I think people will have a different view on it. But this has happened so routinely, it's almost like we're desensitized to it.
No, we're not. No.
I say I think what's happening is everybody's waking up. I don't care which side you are, and whether you're Arab, non-Arab, American, non-American, religious, not religious. We're sort of waking up to this idea that something's just not right. Right?
Mhm.
Because all these things keep happening. And sometimes we don't even know why we're giving into it anymore, right? Because now it's happening so fast. Since COVID, things have been happening
consistently
too fast,
Yeah.
right? It's as if somebody's just trying to fucking break you mentally. They're just trying to drain you before they put the final blow, the final punch, right? But
And see,
we gotta go. Go
and
ahead.
this goes into the deep state stuff, and I know I can't, I'm just not convinced that a lot of this stuff is organic. But see,
It's
that
not.
plays into the whole idea that maybe people are just inherently just evil towards each other. And I don't believe that
No,
most people are like
no,
that. I
no,
think that
not at
this
all.
stuff is orchestrated from other mechanisms. Like this is
Right.
powerful people are orchestrating this stuff. I don't think it happens organically.
Listen,
like this.
before this, there had nothing had been happening between Israel and Palestine or in Gaza for a couple of years. Right? People were getting along. And so going back to what we were talking about, you know, did Israel and Hamas do something? That's another theory, right? But then you gotta sort of look beyond. Is this something that, if this was just something that was between like an Israeli thing, right? That Israel needed this thing for it to bring people together, to go, you know, to unify people, to kind of people's mind off of other things that's been happening, then Israel wouldn't need something with at such scale, what they would have to respond to at such scale, right? And for it to erupt protests all around the world to the extent and the level as it is, right? So that doesn't. It's a theory, but it's not. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Well, are there other people? Where else? You know, what else could be happening? You know, well, then we just look at America.
Well, let's
right?
frame that. Let's frame that even now. When you say Israel, we're talking about the Israeli government and who in that Israeli government would benefit the most from a crisis like this.
Netanyahu.
And Netanyahu. So that's
right.
really who
But
we're talking about.
But what I'm saying, this scale of the crisis is too big, right? For somebody like Netanyahu to just say, to pull off, or a group of people to pull off, not because they're that they don't have access or control, but just the size. It could have just been a tiny little thing, and they could have unified the government, go throw a little bomb to get people distracted. You know what I'm saying?
But didn't you say that they were leftists? A lot of those Israelis that were killed. I mean, wouldn't that play into the narrative? He's right wing. Wouldn't that play into the narrative?
What I'm saying is, Israel didn't need for these people to come over the border and murder 1,400 people like that.
Right, I get that.
Israel to get the distraction they needed. Do you understand?
Right. Okay? I get what you're saying.
So to me, whether Israel did it, you know, and people call me a conspiracy, it doesn't make sense, right? So you kind of expand out and see what else could it be. I mean, we have a ton of problem in our own country, right? So you look at the U.S. and you say, okay, Joe Biden was all these corruption cases against Joe Biden. The economy is about to go down the shitter. The whole Ukraine, Russia thing
It's not working out. We've just spent all this money. We got an election coming up. There were a lot of people that were coming together, whether it was Jews or Middle Easterns or Americans around, schools and transgender ideology in schools, right? The Muslims and Jews, like the more religious Jews, were like this when it comes to trans issues.
The culture issues, yeah.
They were together, marching together. They were united.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Middle Eastern peoples, I mean, everybody was like united, becoming united, right? And the biggest thing is the economy. You keep hearing economy is great, but when you listen to these actual real economists, they're like, there's nothing okay about this. Then you have all these things coming out about the post-COVID vaccination issues and mortality rates.
But one thing you touched on, Biden. Okay, so what's the thing about this? This is also a concerning thing. The whole, at the end of the day, Israel's not the United States, or is it? Is it like Biden went to Jerusalem quicker than he did areas here with disasters? I mean, he never even visited East Palestine when the train derailment happened. I mean, the Hawaii disaster out there in Maui.
Yeah, and then you had the Hawaii disaster.
And then he's going to Ukraine and Israel before he goes to places in his own country. I mean, that's like, where's the interest?
But are you saying that does Israel control United States? That's what you're trying to say?
I'm saying that Israel definitely has influence over the United States. That's undeniable.
Israel definitely has a huge lobby, just like pharmaceutical companies.
But what I'm saying is, like, for him to go over there so quickly, like Blinken and all these motherfuckers, like, they go over there so quickly, but it seems like they take their time, like, even in their own country, and they don't seem to have any urgency. But so why is it so urgent to go to Kiev, to go to Jerusalem, to go to all these other places outside of your country? And that's what people see here. Like, people who don't really follow politics, they're like, why the fuck is the president of the United States he seems more concerned about things happening outside of the country than within the country? Like, that's
Ukraine,
the way it seems.
Yeah, in Ukraine, more than Israel. And so, we haven't sent hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel, maybe over all the years.
I mean, yeah, it's already part of the package, the 3.8. I mean, it's already part of the military budget.
It's not $100 billion that we just sent to Ukraine.
It will be, though. It will be if Netanyahu signals out enough, like, we need some money. I mean, it'll be.
You got too many people on the left that are anti-Israel.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
They're gonna send what Israel is gonna get support, right?
Of course, yeah.
It's not gonna be to the extent that Ukraine got in the past year.
They don't need financial support because they have support in other ways. It's all over.
But again, we're getting lost in all these things where I don't think the truth is there, right? Because let me break down what I've come to, and we can like hash this out how I got this, is that when they talk about deep state and these people, there is I think a very small group of people who sits on top of these people that controls and guides everything that happens in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there are all these smaller players, be it Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, Russia, whatever. And it's possible that there's all these like people on top, they're just playing chess with each other. We're just a game and they're just
moving us around.
Moving us around. And they're just playing a game. And we're sitting here in a crisis, but to them is just a game. Right? They already have all the money in the world or all the power. So it's like we have opposing views and we're sitting here and we're just kind of laughing. And even though we're talking about
all this stuff. If we're in charge, we're competing with each other in a sense. But we're friends and we're just playing a game. Right?
Awesome. Yeah, man, don't say it like that though.
No,
Hold on. Let's not get too far. Like, let's not segue yet because I want to get your view on the October 7th, like your these deeper meanings. I want to get to that.
let's leave that for the end. I don't know how much time do we have.
Oh, you want to leave it to the end? Okay, let's leave that to the end then.
Because I think if we talk about it now, it might just get too out there.
Okay.
For some people, you know. So anyways, well, so I was like, okay, who's benefiting most from what happened in Israel, right? I've eliminated the idea that Israel was behind it, right?
You say you eliminated the idea?
Yeah, because the scale of the atrocity was just too much.
Okay.
For them to do it. They didn't need that. It's just it's an overkill. Right? Okay. So might be a small element in Israel, but I think the bigger benefactors are going to be other places. One of them being in the US. Because that sort of took the heat off of Biden, changed the narrative from Ukraine. Now, when we have the economy collapses, because they're going to create this, if this turns into a bigger war, right?
Yeah, an excuse
and America goes to war, then they can blame the economy collapsing and the recession on the war, right? Usually you go to war after a recession, but then that's how the economy, but they're just trying to preempt that because it's so big. The collapse, the scale of the problem is so big that they can't let it. They need an event, something to blame it on.
Just like they did COVID. I mean, COVID was the same.
All right. We have inflation's about to go through the roof. If we thought things were expensive now, wait a year or two. Okay. So we have these huge problems, and something needs to happen in order for that to go, in order for them to blame all those problems on the war. So America benefited from what's happening in Israel, because now also it's divided people, right?
Okay.
Right. You had Jews that were marching for BLM that are now like, what the fuck? I supported you, and now you're supporting these guys.
Exactly. Yep.
So they're divided from their own. There's like, we're all divided. Now they're just dividing you again into different pieces. But then you already hated the liberal, hated the conservative, the liberal Jew. It sounds weird when I say Jew because when other people say it in a the liberal Jewish person who was in support of BLM, right? That was against me, conservative Trump supporter, right? Now we're on the same boat, but then we have distrust of each other. We don't like each other, but we only have each other. Right?
Yeah.
So we're even though we're now on the same side, we're not tight. There is a tension there. Understand what I'm saying? Now we had a lot of Muslim people supported Trump. They're not these more religious people. They're all conservative.
Of course,
they value family. They don't like abortion. They don't like trans rights. They don't like all this. They're all conservative.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So now they're being pulled to the left.
Right? Yeah, but see, let's not use left and right because I honestly don't even believe in it anymore. As far as like what we.
But you know what I'm saying. People,
I know what you're saying.
Know what we're the Democrats need the these votes.
Of
or
course
these
they need those
or not,
constituents.
or they know they're going to lose. They don't want to give it to Trump.
Yeah, they're going
right?
to lose Michigan over this one issue, possibly.
Because Trump supports Israel, right? His son-in-law is Jewish. His daughter converted to Judaism. He moved the capital of Israel to Jerusalem. He did the Abraham Accords, which, by the way, that could be one thing, is that the reason why this thing happened was so that they don't allow the Abraham Accords to go through, right? They wanted to kind of break it apart.
And
that's another.
Is that with Saudi Arabia? Is that what you're talking about?
Right, that's with Saudi Arabia.
Can you explain that briefly for the audience so they know what that is? Who don't know what the Abraham Accords are?
That was basically a peace between Israel and all these Arab nations, including Saudi Arabia, normalizing relations, freedom to fly over each other's airspace, to have trade, to work together, just basically peace, like bringing peace to that area. But now when you have Israel bombing all these Muslim people, and you have these Muslim people marching in Europe and things, and the people in Saudi Arabia, even though they're Sunnis and they're not Shiites, but then they're Muslim. So how can, it's not easy for the government to support Israel, have normal relations, when your people are going to see you it creates tension between the people and the government if they support, or stay neutral, right? But yet, at the same time, there is all these Gazans in Gaza who are, 1 million of them that are being displaced, right? Yet Egypt won't open their borders and saying we'll rather sacrifice 2 million people than open the borders. Saudi Arabia doesn't want to take any of these people and relocate them, at least temporarily, out of harm's way, right? So everybody's saying Israel bad, but they're not doing anything to support. They have the means. There is like 22 other Arab countries with trillions of dollars worth of wealth.
Well, see, that's the messed up thing about it is I think 70% of Gazans are refugees anyway. They're refugees anyway. Like most of the population is a refugee population.
Okay. But what?
So it would be like it would just be like all over again, basically. Like just moving around.
Is it better? Let me ask you this. Is it better to be a refugee again than potentially get killed in a war zone?
I don't think that'd be fair for me to answer because I don't.
No. I'm not telling you to take the side of Israelis. What I'm saying is, if these Muslim countries that are talking about Israel bad, Israel is doing all these things, right? And they're against terrorism. Instead of going to war, like two things. All these people just go to war with Israel, which they don't want to do. Or they could open their borders, right? Egypt could open the border. Saudi Arabia or all these countries could be there standby with airplanes to transport these people temporarily out in the desert, out of harm's way, in a camp for 6 months, right?
That would have to be a plan in place, though.
Fine, but you don't think they could plan it?
There's also a reason why, but why won't they though? I've tried to ask.
Okay. My point is, why is everybody just saying all this, but they're not helping the people? They're saying that these are occupied people. Obviously, there is a war. You care about them. You don't want them to get killed. You don't want them to be harmed. Why not help them get out of harm's way? Israel is a psychopath. right? You can't start hypothetically. You
Right.
can't stop a
negotiate with
psychopath,
them. Yeah, yeah,
right? At least help these people. If you care so much, get them out of harm's way.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're not doing it.
I know they're not. I know.
Okay, so they're a fucking hypocrite.
Mm-hmm. And are there any reasons behind that? Like I know
Because we're all, whether right now, whether you're Muslim or you're Jewish, we're all operating from our by feelings of anger and hate
Mm-hmm.
over compassion. An Israeli baby is no different than a Palestinian baby, no different than your baby or my baby.
No, it shouldn't be. That's the way it should be. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
But we're all treating it as if they are different.
They're framing it completely.
You know,
I totally agree.
400 babies died in Israel. On the Muslim side, no big deal. But look at the children of Gaza, right? Then on the Jewish side, good that their babies are getting killed. Look what they did to our babies, right? Yeah. I'm not saying the way we're feeling is any different. We're all going based on these feelings and these pictures that we've seen, and it's created this image, this reality in our heads that we're supposed to hate. I don't know if you saw, there was a Jewish guy who died yesterday or a couple of days ago in LA at a Palestinian rally, pro-Palestinian rally.
No, I didn't hear about it, but I'm not surprised at all.
There was a guy standing there with the Israeli flag. They're counter protesters, old guys, 65 years old. They're standing in the corner. There is a pro-Palestinian march. There's a guy with a megaphone that comes and says, "We're gonna get rid of all of you," and hits the dude over the head with his megaphone. The guy drops dead. Now, and then you're telling me there is no anti-Semitism? Like that guy wasn't Israeli, just some guy, protesting that he's got a right to his homeland, to a land too.
There's definitely anti-Semitism, but anti-Semitism is also used as a weapon against people who speak out against Israel too, not necessarily Jews.
I think all
it's
these
no different than people being accused of Israel.
I think all these words, because you say anti-Semitism, that somebody goes and pulls up a definition of anti-Semitism, right? Or what is a Semite? They go pull up a definition.
What's Semitic people?
What is Semitic people? It doesn't matter what the Semitic people were. Is that right now anti-Semitism, whether the definition is correct or not, is associated with hate against Jews. I don't care what the definition of a Semite is. Right? It's like we're saying this is a Kleenex. Right? But it's not a brand Kleenex, but we just call it Kleenex. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
So it's the same way now. Is in the marches they're talking about intifada revolution, right? The word intifada is associated with suicide bombing. The second intifada was about all these people blowing themselves up in Israel, and now they're saying, oh no, intifada means just resistance to an occupier. Do you understand what they're trying to change the definition? Or from the river to the sea, Palestine would be free. Just all of a sudden is a chant for freedom, and it's not about wiping a state off of a map, or the literal meaning of from the river to the sea means from the Jordanian river to the sea, there will be no Israel and it will be all Palestine. That means we're gonna wipe out Israel. There is no Israel between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. That's what it means, right? But that's what it means. But that's what that thing has meant for so long, right? But it's been chanted in Arabic, but yet is in our is in our streets now, and then they're trying to frame it as, oh, it's not, it doesn't mean what you say it is. That's the same thing for the definition of a Semite and anti-Semitic. Like, whether the definition of a Semite meets the word, the feeling that it invokes when you say anti-Semite. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if I got across the point.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't. But I just think I think the context is very different.
Whether anti-Semitism is being used or being misused, right?
Mm-hmm.
To mix two different things, I agree. But when people come and say, I can be anti-Semitic because the definition of Semite means these people who lived in this region, so therefore me as a Muslim, I'm also considered Semite.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not about the definition of Semite. It's about what in today's world anti-Semite means. When you say somebody's anti-Semitic, means you have hate or dislike towards Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means today when you use that word. I don't care what the definition of it was before or what Wikipedia says. It's irrelevant because that's what it means.
1 second.
Yeah.
I just gotta lock this door. No, I get what you're saying, but I think that, like I said, my whole thing with that is this is a free speech platform, but I've seen throughout my life that word been so weaponized, like honestly.
I agree.
It's part of the Holocaust industry, is what it is. I mean, if the Holocaust,
you can't say a Holocaust industry. That's a terrible way of saying.
No, I'm citing a book
Right.
that I've read. It's an important book. Norm Finkelstein explains that in his book, The Holocaust Industry, how this word has captured a meaning of its own, especially after.
I agree. I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think we ourselves have sometimes. It's like let's say, like they said George Floyd, for example, was lynched through the streets, right? That was not anything close to what lynching is. Do you understand what I'm saying? Lynching is a horrible thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes us as Jews, it degrades what the Holocaust was when we use it so casually and also using of the word Nazi, like we just kind of throw that word around as Nazi. It's I disagree with it. Wholeheartedly. I can't understand why people use it, but I don't like it. And every time I said, you cannot compare what is happening. Like all of a sudden these things are happening and everybody's like, oh, this is another Holocaust.
People automatically going, it's just ridiculous.
Which, well, they have the right, because the argument is, well, Holocaust didn't start overnight, which is true. It took time. If things are going the way they are right now, it could potentially lead to a Holocaust years from now. So I think part of it is like letting that not ever happen again. But it doesn't. But it's very difficult to explain, because
the fact that we're able to talk this freely about it though tells me that it's not the same context, because it's degrading the memory of the people. Is what it does. That's what it does.
Yeah. Right.
And there's no reason to make these these brash comparisons
Comparisons,
when
right?
we're in such a different a time. It doesn't do any service to anybody.
Right. But you can see how, I don't think in Israel, but in Europe, if there is a lot of Muslim people. And this is not again against Muslim people. There is a lot of radical Islamists who are in Europe that have the potential to, not necessarily against Jews, but against Europeans in general. To try, there is this sentiment that they're going to turn Europe into a Islamic nation, right?
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying. This stuff right here is almost like it's tit for tat because, I mean, to me, I would argue there's just as much Islamophobia than there is anti-Semitism.
It's not. No.
If we're using,
We're talking about radical, no sane. I'm not.
Yeah, but what does that mean, radical Islamists? Like, I know what you're saying,
You
but
can.
it's
I
like,
mean, they're because the people who went there, they were brainwashed prior to they got there. I mean, were there people leaving the UK to go join ISIS? There were. They were waving ISIS flags
yeah,
all over. When you have these young kids who are, in America is different because most of the, I can say most, the people who live in the U.S., immigrants, either whether they're Muslim or from other countries, they don't. It's very hard to live off of the government. There is not a lot of handouts. So they're here, they're entrepreneurs, they start businesses, they work hard, they make a living. In Europe, it's very different. All those people live on state welfare.
okay.
They don't work. They get a lot of they just get money there. So a lot of these kids are bored. They don't have it's kind of hard to there is a book. I should find it and send it to you. It's about this Muslim woman, Muslim journalist who went undercover to interview all these people in ISIS and all these terrorist group. And it's a really great book. And how she said, underneath all of these, I'm sitting there next to the head of this terrorist organization, and I cracked a joke, right? And these guys all were normal people, right? And I was really scared. I thought these guys were gonna just kill me. But then after we had this conversation and I cracked a joke, and the joke was actually something like his son-in-law was in the room, and the guy the head of the organization's son-in-law was in the room, and I don't know, he had said something, and the woman said, well, wouldn't you love to have a second wife? Because it's like kind of permitted to have multiple wives. And he didn't know, and she thought the head of this guy, the head terrorist group, was gonna shoot it on the spot, but he started dying and laughter, and everybody started clowning on the son-in-law, for the comment that he had made. And from then she became like very friendly with them, that they'll talk to her freely about the things that are going on. And one part of the book, she went to Europe talking to all these kids who are refugees from these Muslim countries into Europe, and their state of mind and the things that were happening. I'll find the book and I'll send it to you. But let's not get so off track. And again, this is not against Muslim people, because I've living in Iran, I've been in like a crisis of being brainwashed about the Israeli occupation, right? And then being Jewish and visiting, and I mean, like, these two things
they don't make sense with each other, right? Somebody's lying here.
Okay. How do you think your experience as a Jew growing up in Iran would differ from a Jewish person that's from the United States, for instance? There's not a Middle Eastern Jew, but they're from the States, and they're like a Jew from like Poland or Germany, and their family moved to the States. You know, maybe they were in the Holocaust, maybe they weren't.
Well, most of those people weren't in, but their grandparents were. Almost
Right, that's what I'm saying.
99% of them.
That's what I'm tying. Yeah, their family. That's what I'm saying. That experience is there.
I think the difference is just a cultural experience. It was a Middle Eastern culture versus European culture. So how is I don't understand the question.
I guess what I'm saying is, from the people I talk to, they differentiate because I watched. I subscribe to a lot of channels, and they interview
the Sephardic and Ashkenazi people.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is this: the fact that a lot of people in the region will say, "Well, Benny's from the region." You're not like some of the people from that have origins in Poland that are like they see those people as transplanted into Israel, but they see you as already geospecifically part of the region versus people who aren't.
So are you saying it's okay for me to say, like, for me to claim Israel as my homeland and somebody from Poland doesn't?
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying that there has to be a difference in views because people do say that in that region, especially Arabs will say, no, they're Jews that are indigenous to the region, and they see those people as not part of the region.
Right, but
so in a way, I guess I am, but they see it as a difference. They clearly
those Muslim people would be okay with state of Israel if it was all Jews from the Middle East? Because right now the point is the occupation, that the land of the state of Israel, right? This is what we're talking about.
Uh-huh.
All right. And based on your definition, Arabs are okay with the state of Israel as long as they're all from the Middle East.
I've heard that. I don't know if they'd be okay with the state of Israel, but there's an acknowledgement that there were Jews that were already part of that region.
Look, there were Muslims. There were a lot of Muslims and Jews who were living in Spain 400 years ago. That they were all very tight communities, and they shared culture. Some things happened with us as humans, where we got divided, right? And whether it's in the esoteric terms, it's just like a cycle of time, and we're going through darkness and light, where we get influenced by the cycle of the stars, and now we're going back to that light and coming out of sort of a dark ages. But I think we need to just, so to your question, is it different? I don't know, because I could go into like other things. People think, for example, the pharaohs in Egypt were black, right?
Right.
But DNA evidence shows that there were white, blue eyes with blonde or red hair, right? People associate Muhammad with like a dark-skinned Middle Eastern guy, but it literally in the Quran says he was white with red hair. It wasn't middle; it was white with red hair.
And you have all types of people like that in that part of the world.
Yeah, there is, and they found pyramids in China. There was like a same 3 pyramids layout that you have in Egypt. There was one in China. There was like a copy of it in China. China is trying to suppress that information, and the DNA and the facial structure from the mummies they have in that area, they're all white with blonde hair,
that look like nothing like Chinese people look today.
Wow.
Right?
Oh
So,
no, I knew I was going to ask you, Benny. So I know we went to school with people. We went to school with other Jews in high school. What do you think that those same Jews would have different views from you? You coming from Iran versus them? Like the Levivists, for instance.
when we were kids, no, we were just, we probably,
Probably not when you were kids. That wouldn't
yeah,
be it.
now, I don't know, I think we will be on the same page today, like with what's happening. Being from, depending on who they were, well, politically we'll be on different pages, right? But I don't know. I don't really judge people again based on their religion anymore. I judge a person by their character, and because we're all humans. This is what I've learned. Even though I guess my definition of being, I am Jewish, like like, and that comes from me, I guess, having certain experiences and reading more into like the Torah or the Bible. The Torah or even the Quran, they're not these stories. That's those are surface stories, but they're literally, I think they're scientific documents, and they're like the science of consciousness that we've somehow lost. But I don't know if we want to pivot into that right now, but let's close the part about sort of, let's go back to what we were talking about, because we got to who benefits from that, what's happening in Israel, right? And I want to, because there's a few other things I also want to talk about. So it could be the United States, let's say, benefits from that, right? Then it could also be Russia, right? Because right now you see Russia meeting with the head of Hamas, aligning themselves with Iran, right? Because because Russia needs to sort of close this Ukraine thing. So what better way to throw America a curveball, try to get them engaged into like another war or a different place, right?
Okay, but let's be clear with the Hamas thing. I think some people may be confused about this. There's only a few places in the world that recognize Hamas as like a terrorist organization, because most of the world does not recognize. They don't recognize Hamas as such.
Who's most of the world?
Like pretty much, with the exceptions of, I think there's like 9 countries that recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization, and the other ones don't. Like the rest of the countries don't.
You mean like European countries and America call them terrorists?
Yeah, U.S. I think it's like I think it's Paraguay. Maybe is the only country in South America that recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization. Israel, obviously.
But is Hamas an official government? Does Hamas have a military?
No, Hamas doesn't have. No, of course not.
So what are they?
It's not, but they're not viewed as a terrorist organization. That word's not used, is what I'm telling you. So like they're not recognized by other governments as being a terrorist.
Because they're not because you can't. Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? Though? I'm just saying that perception means a lot, because if we're in another part of the world, I don't think we're talking about Hamas even not is the same way, or Israel is the same way even now.
Okay, so I mean, I guess what do you consider Hamas, or have considered Hamas?
I have to consider Hamas a terrorist organization because I'm from the States. Because if not, I'm against the United States.
No, you're not against. What do you personally think of Hamas?
I
What
think
do you think?
Hamas is. I think Hamas is just another group. Another
Another group
corrupt.
of what?
I think that they're politicians. I think that some of them are crooks. I don't think that they're in for the people, but I also think that the U.S. government's like that. I just think that the difference is that our influence is greater than their influence is. I don't see it as like a greater than or better than or anything like that. I just think that
Or
they're
they're
obviously
they're just a business with a bunch of mercenaries that'll just with a bunch of brainwashed people who think blowing up themselves and killing themselves in the name of God is a good cause.
there's a break. They come from a bigger tradition, though, I believe. Like
Who?
that, these groups aren't like just. I mean, you have the Muslim Brotherhood. You have all these groups throughout the periods. You
Okay.
mentioned ISIS earlier. I mean, it's like, what exactly is that? Like,
Was
what is that?
ISIS a terrorist organization?
What's that?
Would you consider ISIS a terrorist organization?
From everything I've researched, ISIS is a terrorist organization.
And who did ISIS kill the most?
I wouldn't be able to tell you because that's
Other Muslim
other
people.
Muslim factions, right?
Just other Muslim people, just because they didn't see they weren't as radicalized as they were.
Different type of ideology, I guess.
So what are you, aside from the thing not making sense, what are your thoughts of Hamas killing 1,400 people the way they did October 7th? What's your reaction to that?
It was a terrible thing to happen, but it was a terrible thing to happen. But I had the same feeling that I had with 9/11. It's the same feeling I had. It doesn't make sense. They could not have done that by themselves.
No, I understand.
Like that.
Leave
But the
that
feeling
aside.
was
I'm
terrible.
talking about the. Okay, so do you agree with the people marching as being pro-Palestine without acknowledging what happened October 7th?
I believe you're speaking for those people, though.
I'm not. I want to know your view. I'm not trying to make you into a bad person or try to. I just want to. This is what everybody needs to. We all need to acknowledge is that killing anybody, whether for the religion, race, or thing, is a horrible thing, especially the way that they happen. So you cannot take a moral high ground and say, "Oh, free Palestine," and the children living, are getting 4,000 children have died in Gaza, without acknowledging the horrible thing that happened on October 7th. You cannot stand there and say, "Oh, this is just occupation. It's just what would you do if you were occupied for 45 years?"
I know what you're saying.
This was not a normal thing, and anybody who doesn't mention and condemn what happened, I've been pretty open. We talked about what Israel. None of this makes sense to me. But if we as humans want to be able to solve any problems, we need to open up our hearts. And we need to acknowledge that any life lost, especially children, is a horrible thing.
No, human life period is people need to start using children,
especially children.
No, people need to stop doing that even now, because to me, if human life is human life, we don't need to be putting.
I agree. I agree. If we want to have any hope of any peace anywhere, we have to be able to acknowledge and call out. Just say, you want to march? How can you march for Gaza, right? And support Hamas?
I don't believe it's not support for Hamas
because,
though. That's not what it is.
but then you should be protesting against Hamas. Hamas is the one who brought all of this misery since October 7th.
I don't 100% agree with that. I don't. Hamas was ultimately the cause of those people's deaths. Absolutely, they killed those people.
But Hamas didn't think that Israel was going to react. What did Hamas expect to gain?
Hamas absolutely knew that Israel was going to react. But again, I don't live in Gaza. I don't live in that part of the world. And I don't know what's building up over there. And I just know that, like you said, there's been a relatively calm period of time considering the chaotic history. But there's also those people marching in the streets are also marching, I believe, because is it vindictive? Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. I don't know. I think that they're using the oppression of others as a way to justify the murders of the people. I don't know if they're saying it outright, but maybe that's the way is that the way you're interpreting that? Is what I'm saying is.
Look, I think the whole movement for Palestine right now is being what's the right word? It's being stolen from them.
I
and it's going to cause a lot of problems for them.
Like, where's it going to go from here? I think is your question.
Yeah, because it's not gonna, because now you have like gays for Gaza and trans for Gaza and the BLM. They're trying to steal somebody else's
battle
from them.
Mm-hmm.
And if these people who won the, let's say, the occupation, the people who've been there from the beginning,
mm-hmm.
right? That when they see a bombing or something happening in Gaza, they actually feel it because it's been part of their life.
Exactly.
You know,
they're right next.
It's
right
there. It's part of their reality. Whether we say it's been propaganda or brainwashing, it doesn't matter. That they've been there, that they felt something. Anytime something like that happened,
mm-hmm.
they are going to. This is not going to end up well if they don't wake up and realize what's happening in the street is going to hurt their cause and not help their cause. That's what I think. And, at the same time, we all, as human beings, need to wake up and realize that we're all being played for somebody else's benefit. And going back to like what we're talking about, who's benefiting from this, whether it was Russia because they wanted to, throw the US a curveball. There's a couple of things that's been happening. These are things I've heard from, this will be like conspiracy theories. But once you look into it, not so much. Once you consider everything, is that a few years ago, there was the largest reserve, like natural gas reserves in the world, were found off the coast of Israel. Largest reserve of natural gas.
What southeast?
Natural.
Yeah, there's definitely that element involved always. Anytime you have natural resources, especially oil, anything extractable, you can believe there's going to be some eyeballs on it.
So Israel, they found very large natural gas, basically reserves, off the coast of Israel. And we've been talking about the whole Ukraine thing has been about natural gas. The US try and cut off natural gas going from Russia to Europe, right?
Yep.
Well, where else can you send natural gas from if it's not Russia? You can send it straight from Israel to Europe. If you take a direct line, straight line from Israel to Europe, you're gonna pass through Gaza, Greece, and then a bunch of other war-torn countries for you to make it there. What happened 5-6 years ago in Greece? Greece's economy just like
the economy is in
shit.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
but Israel and Russia has a relationship with each other, don't they?
When it comes to money, right? It's not necessarily Israel and Russia having a relationship. It's about who's going to be in control of these pipelines, right? It's corporations that are going to be in charge of these, right? So there is that, and then there is the Ben Gurion Canal.
Yes,
that they're trying to build, right? That's also going to be a sort of like a better version of the Panama Canal. It's called the Panama Canal. They're going through Egypt, right? No,
the Suez.
The Suez Canal, not the Panama Canal. Because in the Suez is one direction. You can only like half the day you go this way, half the day you go back that way. The one going through Israel, I think, is going to be bigger, deeper, and you can go both
way. Yep.
So, okay, well, who could? Then there's all these other questions come up, right? Well, who controls the Suez Canal? Well, does the person, or not the person, we'll call it a person, the person who owns the Suez Canal makes all this money. Do they want Israel building a competing canal right next to them? Right? So wouldn't you want to just like create chaos and sabotage, throw that whole area into a war zone so nobody can really build a canal? Or are the corporations are doing all these wars, they're creating all this chaos so they could create a way to build their canal or build their gas pipeline? Both of them could be true. We'll never know until 10-15 years from now when they're working on this, right? So, and then we blew up the Nord Stream 2, which is a natural gas pipeline going straight from Russia to Europe, and then you're going to build a pipeline from Israel to Europe. Now, is it a competing pipeline that you're like trying to destroy the pipeline so you could run this pipeline, right? Now, if let's say Israel is trying to clear Gaza so they could build their pipeline, right? Is it that, or is it Russia trying to create chaos? When we're about to have the Abraham Accords, right? And we could build a pipeline in peace and create peace and prosperity for everybody in that area, right? Both Israel and the Palestinian. It'll be a great source of wealth, right? We could build that in peace and like have literally create peace, right? This would be a great way. Everybody can make money, right?
Yeah, but to me, Russia, it would be in Russia's interest to keep it peaceful, because China's too, with BRICS exploding. You got the 6 new members joining the beginning of the year 2024. Why would they want war when that model seems to be built on multipolarity? Like, that's anti-multipolarity when you have wars constantly.
I'm talking about the natural gas would be one theory, is that the natural gas going from Israel to Europe is competition to Russia.
To Russia.
Selling their natural gas, right? So
is Russia sabotaging Israel's way of trying to build a pipeline through Gaza? Because you could say Israel doesn't want to keep it all for themselves. They're just creating this to build a pipeline, which to me doesn't sound like a smart way, because you can only have sabotage
Right.
in that area, right?
Mhm.
Or you could say, hey, we're making a deal with all these Arab countries. We'll have them hold Gaza or these Palestinian people responsible for their actions. We can build a pipeline. We can have peace. We can all benefit.
Mhm.
Right? That's another way of the thing. We don't know which one of these it is. All I'm saying is,
So in that
I'm just
regard,
bringing multiple perspectives. I'm
so
not
in that
saying
regard, Russia
one is.
Russia would see that as a bad thing then, because that would be competition.
It could be. I mean,
Gotcha.
I'm just
I get what you're saying.
trying to look at all the possible. I'm not saying one is true or one is not.
No, I got
All
you.
I'm saying, all these things are right now possibilities that all could be true, but over time we're going to see which one's going to be the correct theory or thought or
Because
whatever.
you better believe, if we're thinking about this stuff, you know that they've already thought about it.
Right. So
I mean, it's already been thought in existence anyway.
this has been going on for years. You know, we got Israel, you got America building like a $4 billion intelligence compound in Lebanon, right?
Yeah.
And Lebanon's economy is being going to shit. The only one port they had where they could have exported natural gas, that's been blown up. You know, the other way would be through Syria. Syria doesn't have an economy. There's nothing left there.
Oh, can you touch on that for a second? There's been a lot of activity going on in Syria and Lebanon. Hasn't there been like fights between like U.S. soldiers on the ground over there and shit in Syria? Like, why the fuck are we
I
in
think
Syria?
it was in Lebanon or something.
I thought something happened in Syria too.
Probably. Yeah.
Like, why do we even have soldiers over there anyway?
Right. Well,
Is it the obvious answer?
oil and control of energy, right? So then another thing is, okay, so Israel is not going to be the sole benefactor of the natural gas, right? Israel is going to lease the locations. Other companies like British Petroleum, Exxon, all these other companies are the ones who are going to build the infrastructure. So is it these companies that are trying to compete with each other or outcompete their other business models, right? That are creating all this chaos, right? And these governments just have to deal with it. It's just part of just the way of the world. Like, this is how it works. You just gotta, then all of a sudden, this whole Israel missing, like, how did this thing happen in Israel? Then it becomes a question of, well, Israel, with all its intelligence, what other state was involved in planning this? That was carried out on a short notice through Hamas. Right? So Israel didn't know. Hamas didn't even know. These people didn't even know till like the night before, because this has been happening outside somewhere else, not by any of these Arab guys. These guys were just in business. If somebody say, hey, I'm going to give you $1 billion. I want you to go to do this. I'm like, oh, we got the guys to go do it. Do you understand what I'm saying now?
I get what you're saying. I'm on the same page.
We're like evolving from, how did Israel miss this? It didn't make any sense. To now we're at a point where we can see, all right, well, there's a whole bunch of things right here that we're not looking at, because everybody's like, oh, the Arabs are the bad guy. It's the Jews' fault. It's this person's fault, or the the Jews control everything, they control the media. And, you know, for the people who say that the Jews control everything or control the media, then the fact that the news, let's say if that's true, that the Jews control the media, the fact that the news is hyping up these pro-Palestinian movement, right? Because they're covering it, and it's covering it more than it's supporting Israel, should be a big alarm going off in every pro-Palestinian marcher. If that theory is true,
it should be, yeah.
Right? Why are they covering? If you believe that they control the media, why are they getting you to go out and march? Facebook is owned by a Jewish guy.
Zuckerberg. I mean,
Zuckerberg. CNN CEO is
Zucker.
Jeff, right?
I mean, we know all these. I got the whole list of people.
Okay, but is it? Look, Jewish people, they're overrepresented in a lot of these higher places, whether it's in banking, media, finance, Hollywood,
yeah,
and all that. I think a lot of that has to do with us working as a community together. Just the way the culture now, not that, but again, all these people are a very small number of people, right? Are there some bad apples in them? Of course, that's with everybody, you know, everywhere, right? So we all need to stop thinking in terms of like Jews and Muslims and religions, and look in terms of corporations, because when you look at a corporation and the people who control these corporations or these big shareholders, they don't care about your religion or anything else. They care about making money. They'll screw their own people from their own religion or other religions, or they use us to pin against, to distract us from what they really want to do. Does that make any sense? Like this is where I am right now. I think all these governments have outlived their usefulness. I really believe we don't need government. We'll be better off without them. We need proper institutions. And people need to start sort of, I don't know, giving your power away to the government. I don't know. These all sounds like crazy conspiracy type shit.
They don't, man. And it actually makes me. I want you to question more what you were saying earlier about, because you kept saying it was overkill. Like, how could Israel allow something this catastrophic to happen? But to me, that's like giving like the benefit of the doubt to the government. You know what I mean? It's like if you're under the pretense that the government is capable of looking down the road and planning things out, then
what I'm saying is if you're trying to distract with your problems, like we're talking about Netanyahu, right? Who's had these corruption charges, that have these marches, that have all these things. The point I was trying to make, the October 7th thing would be an overkill in terms of a distraction from his problems, because right now this is not this is not benefiting him at some point.
Okay,
do you understand what I'm saying?
But I'm making a parallel between the U.S. and Israel, because you mean to tell me that George W. Bush didn't benefit from 9/11? You don't think that helped him get reelected? If you take 9/11 away,
you're comparing a country of 320 million people with a country of 6 million.
No, I'm comparing the gravity of an event. they used 9/11 themselves. This is Israel's 9/11. If you think that this event, all the things that didn't make sense, even around 9/11, you can't separate 9/11 from Bush because that was a part of his legacy. Like it's a part of his. It's always.
I think 9/11 was the 9/11 was a win for Halliburton.
You don't think it's a win for Bush either? You think he would have been reelected if you take that off, if you take that event away? If that event's not there, does he get reelected?
But
or even retain the power he had?
But what I'm saying is that George Bush was irrelevant. They created 9/11, and Halliburton got all the contracts to build up to take over the
energy sector.
Energy sector in Iraq. Halliburton got a no compete contract to go to war. They were selling cans of Coke for $90 a piece to the U.S. government. Right? There were all the trucks that they were sending. If a tire blew up, instead of replacing the tire, they detonated the whole truck, and they went and got a new one.
I got you.
Right? Bush's father was part of that. I mean, Bush personally benefited, right? But Bush wasn't. It's not. Bush's situation then and what was happening is not comparable to Netanyahu's situation.
You don't think so? They still talk about 9/11 now, man. Like it's always as part
unless you're saying this is like this was done to solidify Netanyahu's legacy. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying there's going to be a part of his legacy regardless.
Right. Well, of course. Well, it's happened now.
He's going to get people who hated him before. They're going to hate him less, I believe. At least temporarily. It may wane off.
So this is I'm confused. Are you insinuating that Israel or Netanyahu in particular could potentially be behind what happened on October 7th as a conspiracy? That's what you're saying?
I'm saying that I'm not saying that he's directly behind it, but that there wasn't enough done to prevent this from happening. Like that's on his watch. Ultimately, it's going to be on his government's watch.
Right. So you could say he was, in a way, he could have been sabotaged.
So in a way, it would be a sabotage if you look at it from that perspective.
Right. All you can say is it's either some people would say, oh, it benefited him, right? Or you can take a perspective of it was sabotage. We don't know,
right,
until we get to the end of this, whatever this thing is that we've started, right? So that's why I don't take sides. I've been freely talking about it. I haven't taken the side of, oh, everything that I was the first one who said none of this made sense, right?
Well, yeah, I know how you think though. I know how you think. I mean, I'm not surprised of what you thought because it just and when we texted each other, when you were talking about the two earthquakes, like the series of major earthquakes in Afghanistan.
That was weird.
But and that was this year. I heard nothing about it, Benny. Like you told me about that. No one else. I had to hear that from you, and I followed the news pretty casually. Like I try to avoid like the news as much as possible because I know you get the news even if you don't want to get the news. And then once you told me that, I looked and I was like, well, damn. October 7th, 2001, guess what happened? CNN posted the letter that Al Jazeera leaked out from bin Laden because bin Laden, that was the date that he spoke out after the September 11th attacks. October 7th, 2001. That's when he gave a pre-recorded message. And then you talked about the invasion of Afghanistan, October the 7th, 2001. Like all this shit just happens at the same time. And then there's like, and there's a
Now that
bunch
you
of stuff
said,
too.
hold on, October 7th, 2001.
And there's some other things because we covered it some yesterday. Ben Gurion, the third government of Israel, was established that same year or that same date in 1951. But I mean, it's still October the 7th. And then there's been a series of events that have happened October the 7th.
October 7th was also
The Yom Kippur, right?
the Yom Kippur War. Yeah, it was an anniversary.
Crazy. Like, what's the chance of that? Like, how could that not be high alert?
You know, there is a guy I'm gonna tell you to follow on Twitter, and he's the guy. He like a year ago he predicted
Who is
that
it? Just go
Hamas.
and tell me who he is.
Let me find him.
Oh, I
He
thought you knew who he
predicted
was,
it.
and you were just
And
entitled.
he was looking at astrological events. He said anytime Mars gets within like 30 degrees of Earth or the moon, there is an event that always happens. And he said he like published it, like published a book about it.
That's crazy.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I wrote that down. The Ben Gurion third government in Israel, October 7, 1951, the Yom Kippur War, the war in Afghanistan officially starts, Bin Laden's speech, Palestinian terrorists seize Italian passenger ship. I think this was October 7, 1985, threatened to blow up Israel if they did not free 50 Palestinian hostages. So, I mean, it's crazy just how all these if you really think of it, if you dig deep like that and you're like, man, is that just coincidence? Like all this stuff?
Yeah, let's see if I can find it.
But something else I was going to say while you're looking at that, I was watching an interview today with who is Weinstein's brother, Brett's brother. What's his name?
Eric Weinstein, amazing guy.
Eric Weinstein. I was listening to his interview today, and Benny, man, what's the thing about the thing I don't understand about Epstein is almost like even if Epstein is dead, it's like he's still alive in a way. And I know that doesn't make sense to some people, but even if he's dead, the people who were in control of him are still around for sure. It's like the way these people act in interviews that interacted with Epstein, the way they talk, they act like he's still alive. Like they're so cautious in what they say. And I'm saying to myself, why is that? Someone that is
Who?
Epstein, everyone
No,
is
who is very careful about talking about him?
Brett,
Like
what's his name again?
Eric.
He said he met Epstein. He met him before. And like how did first of all, how did so many people know one fucker? Like all these people know one person. They've interacted with him, rubbed shoulders with him. One guy, and all these people have rubbed shoulders with him.
Because he had money and he was part of that was his, because that's what it was his job. It's not all these people. These are people that are one in place of power or have something. So if so you're saying why did he meet, if you're asking me why did Jeffrey Epstein invite Eric Weinstein to his place?
Oh, I know why he did, because he knew his professors. He knew all these professors in the schools.
Right, but why did he invite him specifically?
Well, I'm just that's not what I'm concerned about. It's just it's the way he's describing the events in the interview and like the cautiousness. And I'm like, why is that? Like, if he's dead, what are you afraid of? Like, why are you using cryptic language? If the person that we're talking about, if people are trying to learn about Jeffrey Epstein,
because what Epstein was like he said, Epstein was a construct. Epstein was just a player. He was like You could compare him to like a not a Hamas soldier, but he was just a guy who had assignments that did things. He was just a foot soldier.
So he just took orders.
Yeah, he didn't do it for himself. He didn't own any of that.
So how did he benefit from it then? Like, why would he do that?
It was his job. It was his job. I mean, it's weird to be talking about it so casually, but why do you, what do you do? Because I don't know, you're a spy. These are exciting shit. You're living on an island. You're living the life, right? You've got everything you need, right? He might not have even known his own handlers, for all we know, right? Look, if you were flying private jets, you had all the money you wanted at your disposal. You were meeting all these famous people, and your job is just, to be there and compromise these people. That's just your job, and at some point you accept the dangers, and it's like it's no different than being a Formula One race driver. It's exciting, right? I mean, it's sick what he did, right? Maybe his thing was that he liked young kids, and whoever is in charge of him, they give him what he wanted. So he got what he wanted, and at the same time, they had him on one thing that could really take him down. So he did what they told him to do. I mean, that's another view of it, right? We'll never know why he did it. All we know is that it wasn't just him.
Of course not. Of course not.
He was just part of something bigger, and he wasn't in charge. He definitely wasn't in charge. He just had a job to do, and that's what he was doing the job that he was. Epstein as a person, I don't think was a powerful man. It was just like any normal other dude with a
100%.
with a job. Take away his sick proclivities towards children or whatever, who would have just, I don't. Does that make sense? There's really
it does, but
you gotta break it out. You gotta break it down that way in order to really realize that it's not. If people say, "Well, what about Epstein?" Well, what about him? He wasn't nobody.
Yeah, he was a nobody.
People that controlled him are the nobody.
He was a nobody that everyone knew.
No. What I'm saying is, he wasn't the real deal. He was the face of something else. That's what I mean. The reason why they hired him, because it was probably charming. He knew how to talk to people. He knew how to, get them to do certain things, right? So in that things, everybody knew him, but he was he's not the important person in a way. He's just the conduit. He's the in between the people that control him.
Okay.
And the people that he's compromised.
So let me ask you this. So are you saying that can we just say for sure that those people were compromised, or did they have something to gain to be around him? You mean to tell me they were just all roped in around this guy without anything to gain from it? They didn't know what they were getting into?
I think for some people, it just depends on, I think it was a compromise operation. They were there to compromise people, but they were also there to build connections, right? They didn't necessarily have to compromise every single person. The people that really needed to control, they compromised them. And then all the other professors, they just gave them money, or they funded their projects, because then later on they could use them as propaganda or mouthpieces, or because these professors don't make money. They all get grants and shit like that. So there's all these guys. I haven't seen like there's a documentary that what's his name made. Who's the big guy that makes he did Fahrenheit 9/11.
Michael Moore.
Michael Moore. He did something about like climate change and the greening movement, the solar panel movement, how he went and showed all these how there were all these fossil fuel companies supporting these solar companies, because the idea that you have, for every solar farm that they build, right? For example, Tesla says they're renewable energy, right? Mm-hmm. Because they get 100% of their source from solar, right? What they don't tell you is that to every one of these solar processing plants is attached to a coal plant as a backup, right? However, the coal plant is not just there as a backup that in case you don't have it, you fire up the coal plant.
Absolutely.
The coal plants are running 24/7 in parallel to the solar panel, right? So it makes sense that these coal companies are supporting, because the more solar farms there are, the more coal plants they get to build to run their fossil fuels, right? So these companies had gone and paid money and grants to all these professors to talk about how it was good to burn these fossil fuels or biofuels or whatever, right? They turned these green professors that are for like green energy, funded the research, and these guys started putting out papers and positive papers about how it's okay to do these type of things that are environment friendly when they're still super dirty, right?
It's really no different than this electric car like craze. I mean, we know
right,
that.
Right. Let's not get off that, but that's similar to, let's say, Epstein. They will fund all these people, and then they get to get favorable views or research or scientific papers. If there was, I don't know, they needed somebody to vote a certain way at a university for something, or if there was, I don't know, like think tanks for going to war, or they were just a source of information. And I think the more and more I think about it, it seems like whoever was behind Epstein, it wasn't a intelligence, like one intelligence agency.
Right.
I think they were, it's some sort of like a intelligence brokerage house.
Damn.
They were like a double agent, right? You'll sell you sell information or intelligence to the highest bidder. Hey, you want this thing? Okay, I can introduce you to get you this professor. You want to force this company to do a certain thing? Well, we got this dude, he's really a closeted gay guy with a family. We got something on him. You want, but it was like a intelligence brokerage.
But like you said, the scary thing is that he's the face, but you mean to tell me there wasn't more people like him in this network? How can it just be one person?
Well, there was Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, but that's just two people, though. Those are the ones that we hear about.
This is just one operation. There could be separate.
Right.
This was just one thing with one operation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. It's, I mean, I'm sure there is other intelligence networks or other places where they do the same thing, maybe in a different way. But
are you surprised that why it shouldn't be surprising is the reason why this is suppressed so much? We know that there's interest in Epstein and Maxwell. It's almost like a fantasy novel at this point, like the following that this story creates. You know, you have the Whitney Webbs of the world. They made careers basically off of the Epstein story. And I'm not trying to trash Whitney Webb. I'm just saying that I find it mighty interesting. There's like one, she has all these answers and she's done all this research and stuff. Is she allowed to do that stuff? Are we allowed to have one Whitney Webb? Is that how that's set up to where we can, if we get one Whitney Webb, maybe it's not as threatening. Okay, she has us, she's got us. But will people listen to one source if she's the only source of all this information about Mossad?
how come she's not being censored and everybody else is?
Exactly. That's making me just more and more. I was talking on camera with Matthew Witt, who I think you'd be interested in. Like all of our episodes, we talk about similar stuff that me and you talk about. But we were saying like, why is she allowed to publish 2-volume books on Epstein and the Mossad and intelligence agencies, and no one else is allowed that kind of free reign to document and publish all this stuff like that? But I guess my deeper question is more so, you made a comment on episode 3 about all these people are dying anyway, like the Queen already died. Kissinger, he's on the way to the grave. Soros, he's on the way to the grave. I mean, these people are in their 90s. And are we going to finally get more dirt on these people after they're dead, or is it just going to be like they're going to be forgotten about? Because we know that they have some piece to this equation. It can't just be that these people have.
I guess the question is how long can anything survive from its original founders or its original people who started it, right? So if, you know, like, is George Soros's son, who's now running his foundation or his businesses, right? He grew up in a different world, right? George Soros was working with the Nazis. He was a young kid. He's seen a lot of different shit than his son. His son was like pampered and went to private school. He's seen all these other things, and he grew up in a society that we grew up in. He's like, his mind is not the same as George Soros, whether good or bad, right? The way he operated, he could be more worse than his dad. But what we know is that it's not the same, because they grew up two different lives, like two different things. I'm not supporting George. I know what a horrible person he is. So would they come out or not? I don't know. But the bigger question is, how long is this thing going to last once these people are gone? I mean, how long can you push it for? Like, how much longer can it go like this?
Exactly. Do you see that?
They were in charge.
But Newsweek article that just came out?
Which one?
About RFK, new Epstein. Like, they're talking all this. It's like all
RFK and Epstein?
Yes, man.
I haven't seen that.
A huge Newsweek article, dude. Like, seriously. Like, and he admitted in several interviews that I met him twice or something. Like, it's crazy shit. And like, all this stuff is going on right now.
Yeah, so why? Is
it, how does everyone fucking? It's just crazy.
Well, because he was. Look, what does it mean? I met him twice. If he was in the same party and I said, "Hey, this is Jeffrey Epstein," and just shook his hand and was like, "Nice to meet you,"
He
Like,
said he
what
was
is
on the Lolita Express specifically.
who? RFK
RFK
was?
did. Like, why would he say that now? You know what I mean? Run for president. Like, why would you bring that up now? Like, why would that even come up now?
Why wouldn't he? Well, I mean, they brought it up, so he has to acknowledge. You're saying why he didn't say it beforehand?
Yeah, why is this just now coming out? Like, we're deep into, like, we're in November now, 2023. RFK has
Because
been
he was forced to talk about it. Now they know he's coming up, and they need to kind of make people question him. So, oh, he was also part of Epstein, but it doesn't matter because so what? They brought up Epstein, and then what? It's just gonna go away again?
depending on who you are, it will go away. That's what I'm saying. It seems like for some people, they've been able to shake it off easier than others. But you notice people like Bill Clinton has been way off in the deep in the shadows.
Yeah.
But some people are just as visible, like Dershowitz. He couldn't be any more visible. Like he's all over the place. It seems like he's like,
Right.
yeah, I'm there, I'm here. But it's like you got people like Bill Clinton way off in the abyss. And it's like, why is that certain people are just like, we know about Bill Clinton's ties, we know about Ivana Trump and her like close relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, but it's like, why
Whose relationship? Ivana?
Trump's ex-wife was super close with Ghislaine Maxwell. They were attached to the hip.
Oh, really? I mean,
Yes, even more so than Trump. Like Trump,
I need to brush up on my on all this stuff. I haven't done it in a while.
yeah, dude, man, there's been all kind of people like come off like under witness protection, and they've outed all this shit, man, to the public. Like it's crazy.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the novel that never ends.
Right. Well, I mean, so now that well, what? So then I guess I have to rethink my question whether Epstein or the people behind him were just like intelligence brokers, or they belong to a agency, right, or a state nation, right? We could say U.S., Israel, UK, one of these, or it's even something crazier. Is that again, all these places are controlled by even smaller number of people, whether it's nations or countries. Like somebody was giving me this, I was in this person saying, well, you know, people think we have that we have the central bank, you know, the Federal Reserve and the central bank, which is not part of the government. And all these countries, and the central bank works with the banks that they give them, loan them money. Then each country has their own central bank, and those central banks report to the International Monetary Fund. There's a bank that works with all these people, and then above that is the International Bank of Settlements, where you have the SWIFT system. Right?
Yep.
Well, who controls the finances of the U.S.? I mean, if they're what is then is everything that we're experiencing in the U.S. with regards to our own currency and all of that is just a facade, right? When all these central banks talk to each other and they have a central bank that controls all of them and gives them money and, you know, gives money around the world for all these projects. And then on top of them, there is another, there is like 3 branches of the IMF or something. And then there is one sitting on top, which is the International Bank of Settlement. Right? So, like, can we now reframe Jeffrey Epstein as you have all these intelligences that are working with each other, that have Epstein as the
as a link that connects them all together because they're sharing intelligence, or there's compromise to do something, and somebody controls them. Then who really controls all these countries? Right? So there's no longer whether Israel controls the U.S. or the U.S. controls them. Well, who's really controlling all these nations, right?
I honestly believe that I think there's a deeper meaning of why Assange is in the situation he's in right now. I believe Assange has info on this topic.
Well, he's been open and he said all these wars that are happening or going to like Afghanistan or all these places was just like a money laundering operation on a massive scale. Then became Ukraine. Ukraine is like the new thing. Then who knows what it's gonna move on to next, right? So I don't know. These are all questions. We just, you were talking about earlier whether Israel controls the United States, right? But right now we got to a point where we said, well, does it even matter? Like, is that even a question? We should be pondering whether Israel controls the U.S. or U.S. controls the Israel, because above them there is something else that could be pulling strings.
Absolutely.
On all of them, right?
I would reframe it more so the U.S. is allowing it to happen.
Because these people are saying they're playing chess. I mean, look, you just stay down here. As long as you're down here.
As long as you're down here, you're good.
You're not looking up, right? Then whatever. You guys have at it, man. Just the Jews hate the Muslims and the Muslims hate the Jews, and we'll have these marches and nobody knows why they're marching, and the gays for Palestine is marching for the Hamas freedom fighters. It once you really like sit back, and none of this stuff makes any sense. So you're like, fuck, man, the world is just fucked up. I'm just gonna mind my own business. I'm gonna just do my thing, and
it's so sad
at that point it's hard. Imagine having this conversation with somebody who's, I don't know, who's like bought into a side.
You wouldn't be able to.
The conversation we had.
It'd be impossible. You couldn't even crack the shell.
Right.
You could, and honestly, some of the audiences listening to this, once it gets published, they may be like, "What the fuck is Kiko talking about with Benny?" Because I expect Kiko to talk about other shit, not this,
Right.
But I don't think it's a bad thing, because people are like, oh, they want to write it off and discredit it. But this shit is just as relevant as any of the other episodes that I've published.
Right.
I wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't just as important and relevant. It is. It's just like it's up to the people to connect the dots. I'm only there to offer a service.
I mean, people could watch and say, oh, Ben's a nut job anyways. We'll listen to the other two podcasts. So this is no different.
You say what?
I said they're going to say Ben's a nut job anyways. So we've listened to the other two podcasts. So it's not whatever.
I don't know about that, man. I just think that people hate to test their minds.
Right.
It's almost like they've created a whole category, and I understand that some of these like podcasts, they play into the conspiracy stuff like too much. Like their whole platform is around just trying to find answers, which is fine. And to a certain extent, this platform does that too. I mean, I have free thinker in the title. So clearly I have more thoughts than just surface level, type shit. But I just don't think that we can just write off these ideas as just whimsical or just they're too far out there. I don't think so. I think that the target is close. It's always moving, and we may not find it.
Yeah, that's what from me I said. I don't say any of these things are true. I think these are all possibilities that we need to consider and not get emotional when you hear one thing or another, because that's because that, you know, everything is mind control is not as complicated as we say, because we think, oh, they're gonna beam something to you and you're like a robot doing this. They're already doing it.
They're already doing it,
right? Mm-hmm. With the images that you're seeing. So like, I mean, I don't know, like, what, we don't follow each other on Instagram, right?
No, I don't think so.
No. If you, I mean, I don't know what kind of, when you're on Instagram, based on your views on this Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and what you follow, I imagine that you're seeing more of the atrocities of, we call atrocities against the Palestinian people, with the killings and the babies blown up and, you know, all this stuff that's happening.
I think I only follow one or two accounts like that.
Because I'm talking about the algorithm is geared because they.
Oh, no doubt.
The algorithm is competing for your attention. They need you on Instagram, right?
No doubt.
So what they're gonna show you is going to be more of the other side.
For sure.
Right? Because they need you to be there, then they can serve more ads. And you know, you follow one or two people, then they start posting and you're looking at it, and they look at whether you pass by it quickly, you actually took the time to read it. They measure all of these. So based on that, they or if you like a comment, or if somebody sends you a message, right, on the Gaza, and it's like more of a tilted toward Gaza, it's like a pro-Palestinian thing, and you like it and you interact with it, then you're gonna start seeing more of those things in your ad or in your feed or on Explore, right?
I mean, my episode 75, to your point, has the most views that I've gotten on the channel. It has over 4,000 views right now. Right. But it could be because it's Norman Finkelstein too, but it's also because it's around Gaza, Israel. I mean,
right.
And I know a lot of people were sharing that. I think on Twitter, it got 60,000 views, 2,000 likes, and something else. Like it's ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
So
right. So we're all living. So we're all getting fed, and whether this is by design or not, I think most of it is these algorithms are designed to maximize ad revenue and making money without really giving a shit about what you're watching. I used to think that that there is like a conspiracy, but now the more I see it, it's just there could be an element of that. If they wanted to really influence, they could do that. But for the most part, is for them trying to get your attention, and by design, we're polarizing people even more. Right? So people are getting fed all these pro-Palestinian. On this side is getting the babies in the oven and those images and all these other things and sharing the information. And these people are getting the opposite view. And, the next time they see somebody that would have had no feeling towards, right? Oh, you're a Jew? He's a Jew. And all of a sudden, it's like weird to talk to them. Oh, he's a Muslim guy. I know him. Normally, I talk to him like, hey, man, how you doing? What's going on? But after this week, every time I go, it's not the same high, right?
It's crazy, man. But you're right in what you're saying.
And so we're all living in two different realities, but there's nothing's changed since yesterday between me and him. I'm the same guy who's been walking to his shop, getting whatever, right? Normally we'll have a conversation or a laugh, or we both like Trump, so we talk about Trump and like how retarded Biden is, and how he should be in a mental, like in a hospital,
Jesus fucking Christ, that man.
And now all of a sudden we're living two separate realities in our head, but in real life nothing has really changed. Right?
So we gotta. I don't know. I kind of got lost in what we were talking.
We got to go a part 4, man, because I can tell, man, my wife and kids are downstairs, and I can hear them, and I can tell, man, we're probably 3 hours into this. Like, this is pushing the 3rd hour.
Okay, so we can stop here.
But I just want to ask you if a viewer or a follower of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum had a question for you or a comment, what would be the easiest way for them to get in touch with you?
Facebook, or I mean, we could do email or Instagram if they have it.
Okay. Yeah, and
if you want me, I can give you that, or I'll. I don't know. What do you think?
I tell you what. If I get a question, I get them in touch with you, because people that I know dear to my heart and stuff, I don't like to get y'all's business and stuff like that. But, so I like to protect my people a little bit. So
okay, yeah. I mean, I'd love to. Yeah. If they have any questions, we can. Just let me know. And but yeah, I mean, I think we got a lot. What I wanted to talk about, which was not, we got to stop taking sides. Like, the whole point of what I wanted to get across today, or in this conversation with us, was reframing our perspective and views to start questioning. You can't just be manipulated so easily by these pictures, because it's real, but it's not real.
We're still getting filters.
You're only getting a picture. I mean, like the one where they said the news ran with it. They said Israel bombed the hospital.
Oh yeah,
and 500 people died. Right? Look, the pro-Palestinian people, like the Arabs, I mean, like, even though the damage was already done in terms of creating hatred toward Jews, because you killed these people. Everybody heard it, but you think that the pro-Palestinian accounts or places that were pushing all of this went back and corrected and said, no, it was a Hamas rocket? No. So the damage already done. They created all of that. It wasn't Israel who bombed the hospital. It wasn't even the hospital that was bombed. It was the parking lot of the hospital, and it wasn't even Israel. It was a stray rocket from Hamas who landed into the hospital, and it wasn't 500 people that were killed, but 50, and it had nothing to do with Israel. In fact, that rocket was meant for Israel, but they just happened to go fray and they landed. So. But who's going to go tell these millions of people that, hey, you got to take that feeling back?
Yeah, I mean, if I don't get anything from this conversation, it'd definitely be that, I mean, you almost have just competing disinformation at times. I mean, you have heavy, hardcore campaigns going around, for sure. And it's almost like the power of who can get the message out the strongest, and it's really a lot for people to take in. I think it's a lot for the average person to take in. Like, I don't see how you would be able to take it in. And I actually take back something I said in the episode with Jared Ball, when I interviewed Jared Ball, when I said I don't understand why people can't see clearly through this situation. It's easy to not be able to see clearly through the situation, I guess, when you got so many different channels.
Because you have to change the way you think, right? You've already seen that. You've already gone through that. You're like, okay, some of these things don't make sense, right? And you're you could just as easily, you're a black guy, right? That you could have been part of the BLM movement, right? But but a lot of people didn't, right? So your ability to, I don't know, something's got to happen. Something's going to happen to somebody in order to change it's like you gotta get like slapped across the face one time for you to be like, you know, maybe there's something wrong, and then that's when it really starts. And I think it's happening to more people.
It
and that's
is.
where we get into the like a more esoteric stuff we could get into later on. I know we all gotta go. I gotta go too. But we need to level with other people as human beings and not as anything else, and to have love and compassion, because that is when they say love is the way, that's the reason why we're here, is to love and to give love and to spread love, because that's the only thing that's going to repair. And we have this thing in Judaism called tikkun olam, which means to repair the world, and that is through, you know, acts of kindness and charity and humility, right? And there is a very similar thing in Islam that says that, but we don't see those sides on the opposite end, right? All we see is like Muslim people, a bunch of barbarians, and on this side, these Jews are these big nosed, money hungry who suck children's blood. Right? These are the views that we have on the very extreme, you know, sides. And when events like these happen, those views come more to the surface, even though you know they're like most likely not true. Because you're emotional, you kind of let it in.
No doubt. And then you get more people piling on top of it, more people, oh, you agree with that too? Oh, you do too? You do too? And it makes sense that, yeah. But
so, anyway, well, this was a great conversation. I got a lot out of my chest that I haven't been able to talk to other people about. So
I'm sorry about that, man. That's
all right. And I really hope that it helps other people who watch this, that really you have to even question people in your own circle. Not when I say circle, not in the community, but, you know, the government that you're standing by, or the people that you did. Because look, what Hamas did October 7th, it's an atrocity that anybody who denies it has no right to talk about human rights or freedom or anything like that. And at the same time, you know what is happening there with people getting, and you know, the people on the other end, we have to see that, look, this thing is going on, and there is people on the other side that are getting killed, and you got to acknowledge it. That there is a lot of people. It's a lot of fucking suffering. Yeah. Right? I grew up during wartime. I was a child when the Iran-Iraq war was happening. There is a lot of just nasty shit that's happening, and everything that we're doing, this polarity is not helping. People need to come together and try to make peace. I don't think it's gonna be you're not gonna be able to kick Israel out. Israel is not going anywhere, and Arabs on that place are not going anywhere. So you're either gonna continue this and have hate and have your children hate their children, or you could make amends so your children could live in peace. And with that, I think we can stop here.
No doubt. And the only thing I would add to that, I think if people would leave people out of their business and let them handle their own stuff, we probably wouldn't be in this position either. I think there's a lot of assistance from the outside causing more havoc to the situation.
Right now, we're feeding a lot of this stuff in the U.S. and in Europe.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Like this this incentive to kill people and just all this shit needs to end. I don't know how we end it, but I mean it's unnecessary. It really is. But
And, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, we could get into a whole other rabbit hole about people who are, you know, you can be like talking about humanitarian or people, you know, as someone who's against abortion. Now, we talked about this last time, you know, that is, should anybody just have the right and go have an abortion? I don't think so. You can't just not have a baby just 2 weeks before a baby's born.
right.
You say, oh, I don't want it. Now, there are certain things at the beginning, if it's a threat to your health, your threat to the mother, yes, there are certain situations that it has to be done, right? But to just, you know, to any say, oh, my body, my choice, and I can just go do this thing. You have no right to stand there talking about babies getting killed. You know what I'm saying? So we all need to kind of stop being emotional and think about what we're not contradict what we're saying and what we believe. You know. So
yeah, I mean, and I think that's an important point, and that's what the forum tries to do is we really are into calling out the contradictory elements, especially in government and in thought processes in general. Consistency has to mean something. That's what principles come into place. I mean, you can have your views, but there needs to be some consistency, and we don't see that because if there was consistency, people wouldn't be able to sway one way or the other so easily. I mean, that's
right.
That's when you know that there's just not enough principle involved. There's too much. There's way too much gap when it shouldn't be that. In a lot of these situations, that shouldn't even be at that stage. But yeah, we got a lot more to talk about, man. We'll have to bring you back on for sure. Maybe around episode 100, 101, 102. We're probably going to have that many episodes by the new year, close to 100 episodes. But Mr. Ben Sedaghatfar, episode 78. This is a wonderful episode 78. I always enjoy talking to you, my friend. And even though the audience may give you some shit later down the road,
it's all right.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the audience is very much a mixed bag, honestly. I have some conservative viewers. I can't really characterize the only thing I know, Benny, about my audience is that 42 to 43% of the audience is from outside of the United States. So it's quite an international audience that we're speaking
I mean,
to.
I really hope there's people with opposing me, because I don't think today I defended one side or not the other. I was just saying, hey, we got to look at this and look at this. And I hope somebody who's already made up their mind in an opposing view, right? They look at this and they start asking questions. That's all we want, for you to start asking questions and to treat other people who are next to you, right? You're not in Gaza, you're not in Israel. You can, you know, you're observing from the far, you're getting fed a bunch of different things. Those people that have the right to fight each other into other places. You have no right to walk into, let's say, I mean, I don't know, Starbucks and say boycott Starbucks because I don't know, or the owner of this coffee shop is Jewish or Israeli. Let's nobody go there, or go write a bunch of reviews for this Arabic restaurant, you know, because he's Arab and is from Palestine. So we're gonna go ruin his Yelp reviews, right? Don't fucking do that on either side. It's you like you're not doing anything good. You're not doing any good. Right? You're not doing any good for anybody. So I hope that if one thing we'll keep going back, I hope that people start asking questions and take responsibility for their own actions. And next time we get into the crazy, esoteric, out of this world stuff.
I'm looking forward to it. I am. I'm here for it, man. You know about me already. I'm an open-minded person.
That's why I thought love. This was a great, like a therapy session for me in a way.
Man, I got some stuff to tell you, man, off camera at another time. I have to follow up with you maybe this weekend, man. But dude, I witnessed some of the crazy stuff this past weekend. I'll tell you about it. But
all right, for sure.
yeah,
I'd love to hear it.
But beautiful people, enjoy the rest of your night, and we will talk soon. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye bye.